Have you ever just stared at an English word and thought, that makes absolutely no sense? Why do words that look the same sound so different? Well, if you've ever felt that way, you are definitely not alone. We're about to dig into the wild history of why English spelling is, well, a beautiful, chaotic mess. Let's get into it. Okay, just take a look at this. You've got cough, through, and dough. We're talking the same four letters at the end, O-U-G-H, but with three completely different sounds. Now, this isn't just a random mistake. Nope, this is a clue. You can think of each of these words as a little fossil, preserving a different piece of a very long and very tangled story. So, yeah, that's the big question, right? Why is it so inconsistent? To figure this out, we have to put on our detective hats. We're going to follow a trail of clues that takes us through epic invasions, game-changing inventions, and, believe it or not, even a little bit of old-fashioned intellectual snobbery. So, our first stop is a quick look at the major events that really stirred the pot. We've basically got three prime suspects in our investigation, and each one added its own special layer of confusion to the English language. And here they are. First, the Norman invasion, which just flooded the language with French. Then you've got the arrival of the printing press, which basically froze spelling in time. And finally, the Renaissance, when a bunch of scholars decided to improve words by adding in silent letters. Let's break down our first suspect. So after the Normans invaded in 1066, French suddenly became the language of the powerful, of the courts, of the government. The people writing things down, the scribes, were trained in French, so they started writing English words using French spelling rules. That's how we got words like court and how the French word beauté eventually became our modern beauty. And here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The Old English word for queen was spelled C-W-E-N, pronounced queen, but French scribes just weren't used to that qu sound, so they swapped it for q, which they knew. And boom, queen becomes queen. This kind of thing happened all over the place, and it completely changed how English looked on the page. All right, on to suspect number 2, the printing press. Now, you'd think this would finally bring some order, and you'd be kind of right. It definitely started to standardize spelling. But here's the catch. A lot of the first printers in England were actually from the Netherlands, so they brought their own Dutch spelling habits with them. But even more importantly, the printing press took a snapshot of English spelling and froze it in place right before pronunciation was about to go through a massive system-wide change. And that brings us to our third suspect, the Renaissance scholars. These guys were completely obsessed with classical languages like Latin and Greek. They looked at English and thought they could fix it by tweaking the spelling to show off its classical roots. And how'd they do that? By jamming silent letters into words just to make them look more prestigious.